Alright, good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to this first live stream, live read in a very long time. I hope that you're all having a good evening, afternoon, or evening, whatever it may be for you. And Balho, that countdown music isn't me, that is YouTube. And that is for the YouTube premieres. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about the volume of that music or the countdown. But this is an actual live stream. You can interact with me and everything. So we'll give this a try and see how it goes. And if it goes well, we'll do it again. Can you guys hear me okay? I'll put the music on a bit lower. Oh, there we go. There's the music. I had it muted for some reason. Testing, testing. This 20-second, 30-second, or 1 minute delay is killer with the chat. But okay. So I'm going to turn the music off when I start reading in a moment. We'll just give everybody a little time to come in and chill and build up viewers. So tonight we are going to be doing 10 short stories, 2 hours roughly, of live reading for your entertainment. Well, I say 2 hours. It's actually about an hour and 10 minutes. But that's optimal reading speed and no interruptions. As this is a live stream and I'll be interacting with the chat, there will be interruptions. Also, ahead of time, I do apologize. My sinuses and sinusitis have been off the scale today. I've been sneezing non-stop for the last 12 hours. I will try mute the mic in time, but I may not make it and I might headbutt the mic. So I apologize if I sneeze in your ear. All right, I think we'll start off. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay, so we've got the chat on the screen, and also don't worry, the VOD will be available after the stream, and during the week I'll post the individual videos because for some reason YouTube handles videos differently to VODs. Good evening, Jason. How are you doing? So yes, during the week the individual videos will be coming out and you'll be able to watch those and they'll be promoted like a normal video. Those will be in addition to the normal TFOS during the week. So yeah, that's the plan. Which is kind of weird because I started off doing live reads. So we'll see how this goes. And we'll see if I've improved in the last 2 years. I have briefly read all of these stories. I'll leave the music in the background, but very low level. Thank you very much, Jacob. It is very much appreciated. All right. Story number 1. Ah, hell. Not them again. Class 12. What? The senior reaper cradled his head in his bony hands as the junior reaper looked on. Glancing at the slate, he saw the report on top. Human F-92 Scotland. Human? What's so bad about them? The senior reaper sighed. You know the Thanatos scale? The junior reaper frowned. Why bring that up? Yeah, it's a measurement by which we determine resistance to death and the ability to resist passing on. One is easy, 10 is highly resistant. Yeah, and humans are at 12. The junior reaper grunted in amusement. No, seriously. I'm serious. The scale goes up to 12. Humans are just the only ones that qualify. Junior, still skeptical, huffed. What do they do? Run? No. Plead? No. What then? Senior smiled. or did as much of a smile as he could with the animated skull for a face. Why don't you take point on this one? All right. Junior prepared himself. He had prepared for any eventuality. Confusion, denial, fear. It could take some skinny-headed species. Nobody negotiated like him. The portal opened. They stepped through. Ma'am, frick off! Excuse me, frick off, you skinny bastard! What? Oh! All right, back we go. Senior quickly dragged Junior back through the portal, ignoring the profanity streaming behind them. As soon as they stepped through, Senior whirled Junior around to look at him. His nasal bridge was broken, and aether streamed from the shattered pieces, dissipating in the air. Chip bone floated centimeters away from his face, like a dust in a storeroom. She broke my nose. I can see that. She broke my damn nose. They can't touch us. We can touch them. Oh, these ones can. Wait, you're saying that these beings, they can actually touch us? Now you know why they're a class 12. Congrats. Every Reaper needs to learn at some point. So, how do we reap them? If they can touch us, we lose our main advantage to bring them to the underworld. The Senior Reaper smiled again. Well, crossing over to an ornate cupboard, he threw it open to reveal a hanging row of gleaming scythes, each covered with intricate markings. Sometimes you gotta use a little elbow grease. Human M74, Mexico. Sir, you're a man of the cloth. Shouldn't you wanna... Sir, please. Come at me, you bony pendejos. If God wants me, he can come and get me himself. I'll send Saint Peter. Junior and Senior stepped through the portal, scythes at the ready. In front of them was the spirit of a very, very burly priest, surrounded by 5 groaning reapers, aether streaming from their wounds. Looking around the humble room, Junior took in every detail. The priest's physical body lying in the bed, his rosary in his hands, his spare cassocks and his wardrobe, and the boxing trophies adorning his desk. Junior sighed and hefted his scythe. All right, sir. Whirling around, the priest's moustache jumped up and harumphed at the newcomers. More of you! Well, go on then. I've got all day. The 2 conscious reapers groaned in unison. Clearly, this day was gonna be a difficult one. End of story. Now you must excuse me in between the stories. I take a drink of stuff so that my voice and throat stays well hydrated. So there'll be a little pause in between each story. So there might be a drinking sound. About an hour and a half, 2 hours. Somewhere around there. I think Terry Pratchett's version of death would beat pretty much anybody. Can everybody see the story okay? The text, is it a decent size? Not too blurry or anything. Okay, are we ready for the next story? Story number 2. Word prompt. In the Galactic Alliance, humans are seen as an unpredictable species, a wild card. They are fascinated, have the temperatures that we can endure, the fact that we breathe oxygen, the way we keep getting back up, never giving up. They are terrified of us, but revere us. Written by Kiwi Space Marine. in a worn-down booth at a dirty bar in a dingy corner of an out-of-the-way space station. A group of aliens were doing what is normally done in such establishments: drinking, telling jokes, and generally having fun. Suddenly, one of the aliens, a gruff, intimidating warrior named Zahalt, turned pale as he rusted auto-exit doors screeched open and the newcomers confidently walked through the entranceway. "What's wrong, Zahalt?" asked one of his friends, seeing the warrior's discomfort. Zahalt opened his mouth, but he found that he couldn't talk out of sheer terror. One by one, the other 5 members of the group noticed this, slowly falling silent and becoming alarmed. Zahalt was a Yarg warrior, a veteran of multiple grueling campaigns across 24 star systems. He had seen terrors that would make a lesser being perish, and right. What could have startled him so? Mutely, the almost paralyzed alien pointed at the newcomer, who, by now, was at the bar. As the other aliens looked at the figure. It was clad in a white spacesuit with red stripes along the arms. The face was hidden by a black visor, but the small flag sewn on the side of the suit proved all identification to the group. Other bar patrons noticed the figure and took in the flag. The gentle hum of translated conversation slowly drifted away, replaced by an eerie silence. The flag was 2 leaves of an alien plant surrounded by a globe, all stenciled in white and on a blue background. The flag of Earth, homeworld to humanity. The mysterious stranger was, to every patron in the bar, a dread, a human. Oblivious to the panic it was inducing in the alien crowd, the human sat down at the bar, the stool creaking under its weight. It turned to the bartender, a spindly, multi-armed starboard. The crackle of its external radio penetrated the silence as the human began talking. "Got any beer?" it asked the bartender in a mechanical tone of a translator. The alien answered in a trembling voice. "Sorry, sir, but we don't stock human drinks. It's the new galactic regulations. You understand?" He started picking up the pace of his words, fearful of the humans' reaction. "The Galactic Alliance Safety Commission forbids human alcoholic drinks on account of the hazardous nature to other species." The human merely nodded in understanding, an act which sent the bartender running out from behind the bar in fright, squealing. "I'm sorry, please don't eat me. I'm just a humble bartender. I didn't come up with the..." His voice faded away as the terrified starboard ran out of the room and into the distance, presumably to the other end of the station. Not again," the human exclaimed, frustrated. "All I want is one." He got himself off, seeing the various states of terror and despair the other patrons were in. Sighing, he got up from his stool and walked out of the bar, presumably to find himself a drink. I practice. Many hours of practice. That's how you do it, really. I just have a couple different voices and then just vary the cadence and speech pattern, if that makes sense. With the galactic boogeyman TM gone, conversation slowly returned to the normal level, if slightly subdued. "Well," began one of Zahalt's friends, "that didn't go too badly." The Yarg merely nodded. "I fought against those things in the first contact war." He spoke in a hollow voice, devoid of any emotion. "They were like nothing ever encountered by the Alliance. Their brute strength, for one. They could perform feats individually that would take an entire platoon of us to perform." "Why?" asked one of the other bar patrons. A small crowd began to form around the grizzled warrior. "Their planet, Earth, has as much higher gravity than Alliance standard. explained Zalt. It means that they have a much denser muscle mass and bone structure, I think. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. His voice took on a hollow tone again as he recounted things that he had seen humans do. That alone almost demoralized us. His eyes had a faraway look to them, staring straight through the people in front of him. But what really broke us was when we shot them. They just got back up, 10, 20 bolts from our electrocrary rifles, and they just wouldn't die. He suddenly shouted, alarming some of the more engrossed listeners. The others were stunned. A military-grade electrocrary could vaporize a normal warrior in full armor, and the humans just took these shots like it was nothing. We had to use our heavy weaponry just to wound them, he continued after a few moments. But even if we managed to drop one, another would replace him, and the replacement would have the same grit and determination as before, he exclaimed. And those we wounded, he muttered, most of the time their medics would be able to patch them and send them back into combat with almost no permanent damage. They sound unstoppable, interjected one of the crowd. They were, answered the Yarg, and they nearly caused the collapse of the Galactic Alliance. But you know what? His audience leaned in eagerly. When the Zonug showed up 20 years later and began to annihilate planet after planet, I was glad that the humans came to our aid. Thankful, even, because I would much rather be fighting with those unstoppable titans than have to face them again. What about the Grek ascendancy? Asked another patron, referring to the current rising galactic superpower. Do you think they'll be able to win against the humans like they say? To the creature's surprise, the Holt burst out laughing. His deep, hearty guffaws echoed throughout the bar. They may be able to take a colony or two, he said when he was able to recompose himself, but they'll be lucky if the humans leave them enough of their planet for bacteria to live on. End of story. So are we enjoying this so far? Having fun? Problem with this sort of stream is you don't really get a lot of interaction, because people listen in the background, which is fine. As long as you guys are having a good time. A kind of narration that is not normal for the channel. No, I can't say that I do assume that. I normally assume that life just gets in the way of life and stuff happens. Okay, as long as we're all having a good one, that's all that matters. So we're 2 stories in. I tried going with a variety of stories, not the same sort of theme, not the same author, not the same style. Let's just give a nice big variety for us to listen to. So, yeah, the delay should be like 30 seconds to a minute, which is quite long. It's difficult to have a conversation like that. The funny thing is I've got a preview window of the stream, and I can see chat happening in the preview window before I can see it in the dashboard for the stream. Now that's a little sad. Okay, on to the next number story. We Don't Go There, written by Ak1308. Blogs knew that he wasn't exactly book smart, but he'd been around the villain scene in the Bayview City for longer than most villains. He'd henched and minioned for more villains than most. The difference between one and the other was in the dental plan. and once even had a brief stint as a sidekick for a particularly shady vigilante. In the process, he picked up an unparalleled knowledge of the Bayview underworld, as seamy and rife with corruption as it might be. His reputation was second to none for the minutiae of a villainous life. Yep, forgot the music. Let's chill that down a bit. If he did say so himself. If someone wanted a specialty costume sourced, a layer arranged, also ensuring that it didn't encroach on an existing one, or dirty cops identified, it was him that they went to. He had the broadest range of contacts, snitches, info brokers, and scallywags at his fingertips of anyone in the view. However, with all of that, he wasn't a young man. The physical stuff really wasn't his thing, and it hadn't been for quite some time. If a villain wanted a city councilman blackmailed, they came to him. If they wanted a guy beaten up, they went elsewhere. He was fine with that. Thug wasn't something he wanted on his resume. A man had his pride, after all. Which meant that sometimes even a man of his talents might hit a little dry spell. When the heroes had been busy and most of his usual employers were enjoying the hospitality of the Iron Bar Hotel, he found himself down on his luck. So when a newcomer villain came into the city, made him an offer of employment, he accepted. Bloodbound was not the sort of villain blogs would normally have hired out to. But money was money, and sometimes a man had to hold his nose if he wanted to get by. It would only be for a short time, he reasoned. Someone like Bloodbound was guaranteed to make the sort of enemies that didn't allow for a long career. Sooner rather than later, if he was any judge. But in the meantime, blogs would be there to keep him from making too many screw-ups, right up until the better prospect came along. 3 weeks in, blogs was starting to wonder if he was going to last. He'd worked for some of the big names and small names in the business, but Bloodbound was an impatient son of a... Also, when he came to Bayview, Bloodbound had encountered on the black of villains raising the relative number of heroes per villain, and thus decreasing the average response time to a heist, which meant that after 2 jewelry store jobs and an abortive bank hit, they barely made rent money and the low-end layer the blogs had located for them. Bloodbound was especially irate at having been forced to flee both stores and break off from the bank robbery when the heroes intruded on the scene. Blogs had arranged for exit strategies from all 3, which the man had followed. This was about the only thing that had gone to plan. Blogs was finding it harder and harder to keep him in check. This is not helped by the fact that the man was taking an interference of the heroes personally, rather than accepting the fact of life. Villains got a villains, heroes got a hero. He had a good villain space, and he wasn't bad at monologuing, but as blogs had already noted, his attitude needed work. "This is bullcrap," he ranted, stamping back and forth within the moderately cramped lair. "How's a man supposed to build a reputation when those goddamn heroes won't get off my goddamn case?" "They're heroes, boss," Bloggs said, and his best reasoning with the boss tone. "It's kinda what they do." "Well, fine." Bloodbound clenched his fist and the razor spurs that gave him his name slid out of his knuckles. "Maybe we should give them a reason not to." He turned to Bloggs, his eyes going hard. "You've been doing this for a long time. If anyone knows where the heroes hang their capes, it would be you." "Well, I wouldn't say that I know," Bloggs pervicated. "Heroes are pretty good at keeping their secrets, just like villains. But you know some pretty good guesses, right?" Bloodbound's expression was animated now, and all we'd have to do is pay them a midnight vision. Maybe cut down a kid or two, and the next time they see me, they'll run in the other direction. He flexed his forearm muscles, and more blades slid into place. Bloodbound is going to be a name in this town. No, wait, see, this is not a good move, boss, Bloggs said. Going after families, we don't do that. Bloodbound rolled his eyes. No, you mean you don't do that. That's because you're all a bunch of wussies in this town, scared to do what a man's got to do to make his mark. Maybe not, Bloggs said. You haven't been around town for long. You ever heard of Charnel, or Razor Edge, or Gothican? Did you? No. Should I have? Bloodbound tilted his head. Frick it, should I even care? Probably. Bloggs stuck his hands into his jacket pocket. They came to town just a few years back. Not all at once, you understand. Each of them brought in what they figured it out. Each of them figured he'd cracked the code. They went after the families to put the fear of God in the heroes. Each one found out why he shouldn't have. What, the heroes came after them? Sneered Bloodbound, shaking his head. Arrested, chucked in jail, bust out in a few months. Big, fat, hairy deal. Nope, Bloggs shook his head. Charnel was first. He tried to kidnap the Paragon's kid, but botched it up. The kid died. Paragon snapped, tore Charnel apart with his bare hands, then went after every villain in town. Beat most of them bloody, maimed a few. Then he retired, left town, took months before another costume villain showed his face in Bayview. Well, crap. Bloodbound shook his head. But Paragon isn't here anymore. He's a long way away from Bayview City. We don't have to worry about him if we do this. That's true. Bloggs leaned against the wall. We don't have to worry about him. That's what Razor Edge and Gothican thought too. They were going after the families, after the kids. But the other villains found out. And what did they do? Sneered Bloodbound. Clutched their pearls? We couldn't risk another Paragon, Bloggs said. From his jacket pocket, he pulled a snub-nosed magnum. He wasn't one for the physical stuff, but that wasn't to say that he was bad at it. Neither was he one to shrink away from what needed to be done. None of us could. He straight-armed the firearm at Bloodbound. That is why we villains killed them. We didn't need the heat from the heroes. You wouldn't fricking... Bloggs fired. The shot racketed off the room, and the bullet took his erstwhile employer in the left eye. Brains splayed across the far wall as the hollow point round blew out the back of Bloodbound's skull. The villain grumbled, the word dare unspoken on his lips. Bloggs stood looking down at him, then put his pistol away again. You'd be surprised what I'd dare. Then he looked at the spray of blood and brains across the wall and grimaced. It wasn't going to be cheap getting that cleaned off. But he knew a guy. Fortunately, the same guy that dealt with inconvenient bodies. Bayview City was good like that. End of story. Let's go with another song. There we go. That'll work for an end. Just taking another sip. Another pause in between stories. Thankfully, my antihistamine seems to be working and I'm not sneezing. Yep, there are some things even villains don't do. No, I like this kind of counter superhero culture thing. A different side of the superhero phenomenon. It's always good to lost in while working. I would even recommend it. The nice thing with the stream is I can pick weird length stories that I wouldn't normally consider. Well, not consider, but that would be difficult to fit into a normal video. So, I mean, there's some 2-minute and 3-minute stories, which I don't normally do because they're a bit short. No, it's just sinusitis. No sickness. Just a good old-fashioned sinusitis. Problem is, you sneeze these days and half a dozen people dive and hit the ground. Also, I'm getting tired of headbutting my microphone. Alrighty, on to story number next. Story number 4. A Dark and Stormy Night. Written by You Sure I'm Not a Robot. The first time the council met mankind. A dark and stormy night. It's very much the length of the stories. I try to aim between 10 and 15 minutes for one-shots. So I either do 1 or 2 to get up to the 15-minute mark. But a 3-minute story is very weird length. Normally you do like a 2 7-minute stories or a 10-minute and a 5-minute. So it's more in the planning of why I'm not using them. I just need to plan better. But now we have the stream for this. So there's a place for them. Alright, a dark and stormy night. Counselor Apak Tawel examined the findings. This is a sentient species, tool users. The council drone replied. Excellence, this species fulfill all criteria for membership, except one. They exceed the aggression threshold by a factor of 10. They are apex predator species in a world full of predators. The Science Directorate recommend against contact. Fine, leave it for a while. I'll send in an examiner. Thank you, Excellency. Council Examination Directorate. Director Simak Tawel. We are tasked with infiltrating Sol 3, also known as Terra. Amongst other things, we estimate they will reach council borders within the next few cycles. Science is not optimistic. We need to discover their true nature. Examiner Smote looked at the report with jaundiced eyes. I will need to take a few samples. If they are aggressive as the science director thinks, they may serve as a useful addition to our military. Gildara Island, 1178 CE. Sir Ornately de Burgh was making his way to home. His horse was tired as he was. He had sent his retainers ahead to prepare hot food and begin warming his rooms. Chasing the stubborn Irish chiefs off his new lands was a tiresome and dangerous task. The night was closing in around him. The early October evening drew shadows around him, nearly home. Without warning, 4 figures stood in his path. One raised a sword towards him. O'Natalie cursed, reaching for his weapon and spurring his mount, shouting, "Ambushing scum!" Then a light. Then darkness. The examiner smote. Our subject has attacked the team immediately. Unfortunately, I must report the death of Examiner Harrison. An animal the subject was using struck him fatally. The report could never carry the terror when the huge beast had reared up and shattered Harissam's skull. They trained their animals to kill. Subsequent study showed that the animal was a herbivore, a prey species. What kind of world was this? The subject is high status, military, and male. We await his recovery with interest. Sir Natalie woke up in a darkened room. His limbs were free. No sign of his armor or weapons. Tell your lord that I am awake. I am a knight of William the Bastard. Show yourselves and demand your ransom. There was no reply from the dark. He began searching the room. Strangely built furniture contained nothing. The walls were plastered as if it were by an Italian, smooth and warm to the touch. The door had no handle, obvious only by its position. He began pounding on it. He was quite surprised when it fell from its frame. A hallway revealed itself, lit in some strange way from the ceiling. Perhaps some remnant of the Romans, he thought. I am far from Kadara, if that's the case. Another doorway. It opened before he reached it. Sir Natalie tensed, waiting for the servitor to announce him. Nothing. He looked within. Some strange race was examining his gear, his sword, his armor, all laid out. Strange machines examined it. His tutors had spoken of horse-headed people in the far eastern islands, one-legged giants in the Africas. These tall, skinny people were obviously from there. They were masked, wearing white gowns, some form of monk, perhaps. Beside the door lay the javelins that he had taken from an unlucky Irish horseman. Not his first choice of weapon, but it sufficed. He had given no parole. Examiner smote. Report! Excellence, the subject will be regaining consciousness soon. Would you like to attend? No, send me the reports as they arrive. Tell the science team to give me an accurate analysis of the subject's weapons. Of course, Excellence. The first spear went through whatever was studying his sword. The second went through the one overlooking his mail coat. He quickly regained his sword, using it to decapitate the lost creature. Pausing to put on his armor, Sir Natalie went to battle. Excellence, the science team have stopped reporting. Send in security. Find out what is happening. Execute the subject if necessary. The security team was confident. One combatant, no weapons, recently awoken. This was going to be easy. Sir Natalie moved from room to room. The opposition was pathetic. Whoever had captured him was obviously an idiot. Their servants fell unguarded. The security team moved to the science department. They began finding the bodies. A trail of corpses led to the commanding center. A dark figure stood in the center of the room. Blood littered the floor. Body parts scattered throughout the bridge. Sir Natalie stood in the middle of the carnage that he had created. Suddenly, a group of knights appeared at the door. Finally, perhaps they held the keys. He charged. The security team opened fire. Plasma hit his armor. He felt the heat as he swung his sword. Panic set in. This thing kept coming. Shots should cripple, did nothing. Killing shots sank into his primitive armor without a trace. Then its blade swung at them. In the end, Sir Natalie simply hacked his way out. No door was strong enough to stop him. Even the walls were weak. Once he reached the outside, he recognized the land. He was home. He returned with his men and burned everything. Examiner smote. Following the loss of all staff in this project, we have declared the system off limits permanently. All records are sealed. End of story. some music. There we go. This is also a decent test to see how my voice is handling after recuperating. So that's a good thing. Balho, I haven't done any SCP stuff. I've listened to some YouTube videos about them, but I haven't read any of it. I do know that there was a big copyright case with Russians or something, where somebody stole all the whole website, basically uploaded it onto Russian servers and claimed Russian copyright on it. That was a while ago, I think. Why need a key when you can punch your way out? All of a sudden, quiet music. It's supposed to be playlist. It's supposed to be my companion here. It's supposed to be helping me out. There we go. So that I can have a little break to drink between stories. You're supposed to be amusing playlist. Anybody who watches my streams during the night knows playlist is the worst possible co-host. That it does, Sapphire, but these things happen. One person ruins it for a lot of others. Okay, story number next. Which is story number 5. I've seen how brave they are. Written by HeyL_S8_10. And yes, I do know how that is supposed to be pronounced, but I'm not going to say it because YouTube may frown upon it. Let's drop the music. Just a light whisper of music in the background. It was the second night of the Summer Harvest Festival of Jahag Tepa, a Jom colony world, and Awan, 16th Tio of the 28th Maha, had invited Ankh, 25th Tio of the 31st Maha, to a former comrade in arms to join in the festivities. They had spent half of a planetary rotation drinking fermented yayin in the town plaza and catching up each other's lives since they had left the military. As the evening wore on and the townspeople either moved their festivities into the communal hall or simply retired to bed, but the two veterans stayed outside enjoying the balmy summer's night air while they continued to talk. It emerged that Owen's third daughter had joined the military and were currently attached to the joint division with the recent ally of the Jom Military Command, the Human Commonwealth. Humans are tough, I'll give you that, said Ankh, the harvest head wreath slipping from his bony head ridge, giving him a rakish look. They can put up with pretty crappy conditions. That's just it, said Ohm. You can drop them in just about any world and they can at least survive, but they're not especially good on any particular terrain. He went on. The Yule dominate in aquatic environments. The Thith thrive in desert conditions, and the Zorgons like frozen worlds, but humans, they do okay in all of these places. If they have the right tech, Ankh pointed out. Without their tech, they couldn't even survive their own homeworld. Oh sure, they're brave behind the triple-armored bulkheads of the super capital ships, or strutting around in their power armor with its ungodlessly amount of weaponry, or sat at a control panel of one of the stupidly huge railguns, firing at a target 2 systems away, but on the front line, with nothing but a gun and a hoof-step between them and the enemy. We'll see how brave they are then. Oan said nothing and sat picking the harvest head wreath, clearly troubled by his daughter's situation. A snort came from an unheeded corner of the plaza, alerting them to the presence of a solitary finger. I've seen how brave they are, said the figure as it moved towards them. Stepping into the light coming from the hall stood a large, broad-shouldered female, taller than 2 males by a full head and as wide as a pair of them put together. She had multiple bony head ridges, marking her as an elder, and the scars across her arms and face indicated that she was a particularly fierce one. In spite of her intoxication, the 2 males managed a respectful head bow. Apologies, matriarch, Oan. You have seen how brave they are. The burly female glared at Hank. Yes, I fought alongside them, and this is what I saw. When I first deployed with the humans, it was on Moab B. The Imperium had landed a massive invasion force and was advancing from the south. We were looking to establish a defensive line when my platoon came across a group of human soldiers digging a hole. They asked us if we needed a safe place to hunker down. When we told them that we did, they informed us that we needed only stand behind them, as the Imperium would advance no further than their position. We held that line for 7 planetary rotations before the invasion was repelled. Ankh hung his head shamefully. During the Red Nebula conflict, a squadron of human fighter craft were escorting a troop transport back to the mission to wipe out Nudra Orbital Shipyard. While still in Nudra claimed territory, a swarm of Nudra drones attacked our formation, and the humans were overwhelmed by a number of drones. Soon, there was only 1 human left. I was outnumbered 40 to 1, but rather than flee, it attacked directly into the heart of the enemy formation and destroyed or damaged at least 20 enemy craft. Even after they ran out of ammo, they continued to swoop in on the enemy craft and force them to wave from us. The larger craft eventually gave up the chase. Standing over Ankh, she continued. At the fall of Corvenica, we were pushed back to the seashore. The Imperium was threatening to wipe us out before evacuation transport could arrive. We survived the first wave of attacks. The second wave would follow soon. The Imperium tanks using mounted plasma cannons to flood the trenches with fire. The humans rose out of the trenches and hurled their burning bodies at the tanks, causing many to explode and the rest to retreat. We made it onto the evacuation transport, thanks to them. No one exchanged a shocked glance with Ankh. If she noticed, she ignored them as she went on. I have seen humans cauterize their own severed limbs so that they may finish the battle before they bleed to death. I've seen humans blinded by chemical weapons continue fighting while those that could see called out targets. I have seen humans run into hostile zones to rescue fallen comrades. She tilted her head to show a thick scar on the right side of her neck, myself included. The matriarch seemed to lose focus and stared up off into the starry night. Ankh sensed an opportunity to redeem himself. If they are as brave as you say, matriarch, then I am glad that we have them as allies, he said nervously. Yes, she said dreamily. They are brave, all right, and some of them have very cute butts. She then stumbled off into the night, leaving the 2 scalded males in stunned silence. Oan suddenly looked at Ankh. Wait, what? End of story. Dramatic ending. Woo! The playlist is playing up to expectations. I think that was story number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Story number 5. Halfway there. If I remember correctly, there should be a couple short ones coming up. Nope, not actually. All pretty long. Well, not pretty long, just on average between 5 and 10 minutes. Decently long. Scorch 1332. What do you mean playlist? Playlist. Psh. This is all live. Real live. Rikoto, there's tons of HFY series. Creature 88, Chrysalis, the HFY version. Trying to think. First Contact is a current one that we're working on. The Fourth Wave is a nice long series as well. I think there was 110 videos, 110 chapters, somewhere around there. Trying to drink quietly is very not easy. Especially when you forget to mute your mic. Which is a tongue twister all by itself. Oh, that playlist. Yeah, it can do. So sometimes it mocks me and it does its own thing. Like the Super Mario type music. Or the anime type music. But in general, it's quite dramatic music, which works for most stories. So the co-host is behaving himself, herself, itself, themselves. Okay. On to number next. Drop the volume. Alrighty. Story number 6. A Jump in Progress. Written by Pelusium. So you can tell it's probably going to contain lots of swearing, but I'll try and edit it out. There are many things to fear in the universe. Many horrors, many pains, some fates that defy comprehension. But people go on, for these do not concern them. Sure, one could be swallowed by a black hole and be ripped to shreds by gravity, but is that really going to happen? Yes, you could be tortured for aeons by a serial killer, but kept alive by medical science only to experience more pain. But who does that anymore? Many people live happy, ignorant of the fates that can befall them, due to the sheer unlikelihood of any actually occurring. There is simply no danger to the common folk. When the humans arrived, it didn't change too much. Sure, there was a bit of cultural whiplash, but nothing too extreme. We exchanged greetings and some technological swaps. That was a mistake. Their technology was interesting, that's for sure. Humans certainly had an interesting approach to some things. But the problem lay when they got their hands on our technology. See, they were quite specialized in some areas. Quantum mechanics seemed neglected in favor of good old steel and chemicals. Food technology was abandoned in favor of archaic cooking. And perhaps most importantly, biological manipulation was completely ignored. See, If you take a race with little ability to do something and grant them nigh omnipotent power in its regard, we may have made a couple oversights. Holy Christ, it's glorious! One Australian on the station stood staring, arms out wide and a beer in his left hand, a rock in a sea of turmoil. Around him, hundreds of panicking civilians rushed behind him, seeking the exit. I stood still, panicking as my inevitable fate arrived. A couple 100 meters, bounding through the air in leaps, dozens of meters in the air. A death squad came. A couple of beings screamed as those at the back of the fleeing pack were squashed beneath the huge masses of muscles. We're all gonna die here. What are you doing? Run already! A passing co-worker called out to me, soon disappearing back into the crowd rush. I was standing on top of the bench, observing the chaos around me. My brain felt numb. This was all my fault. I'd greenlit the project. I was the one responsible for all of these casualties. They were dead because of me. Mother of mercy, take me now. I've looked upon the abyss and survived. The idiotic Australian called out over the crowd again, reveling in the sight before him. The poor fool was probably reminiscing about his crap hole of a country. The death horde came ever closer. I could almost see the gleam in their eyes as they charged forward. I'm gonna die here. The creatures passed the Australian, leaping over and around him. He stood there, gawking reverently as the monsters as they passed, and in a similar show of respect, they left him alone. They showed no such courtesy to the other civilians. More and more innocents were crushed as they beings fell from the air like a hammer of God, the odd being deciding to launch them into the ceiling with the powerful legs. They were catching rapidly. Soon they would be there. They caught up with the main bulk, and each leap was suddenly crushing 2 civvies at a time. The death toll was rising, while my own death rung ever louder. I had seconds at most before I would be crushed. But just as the captain goes down with the ship, I would die before I abandoned my post. Finally, they were within close enough range for me to counter. I removed a taser from my belt and shot the nearest creature. It fell to the ground, twitching before rightening itself moments later. So much for protecting the station. What sort of security guard was I? But then again, I thought, as the foremost creature loomed above me in the air, what sort of batshit scientist decides a good idea to mass clone kangaroos for meat? End of story. Australians are crazy nuts. It's part of their MO. Alright, I'm going to take a short 5-minute break just to get some more water and quickly pop to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I'll leave you with my lovely co-host, the playlist. We'll just crank up the volume a little bit and possibly move on to a more cheery song. There you go. Something a bit of a fantasy. And then be right back. Alright. Give me a couple minutes and I shall be right back. Alright, back. But my screen seems to have gone wonky. Let's fix this. Why is it going wonky? Ew. Ah, that's why. There we go. Because I was being a bit off. Alright, music, co-host, you've done your job. Now, back into the shadows. Alright. Story number next. Hello, Jake. How are you doing this evening? Grand design was enjoyable, and it's a complete story, so that's also quite nice. Also done by an author from HFY. So was Barbarians, all 3 books. Also an HFY story done on Royal Road. Also, I think, enjoyable. No, there isn't a sequel to Billy Bob's Space Trucker, and as far as I know, Regal Legal Eagle isn't posting anymore. Or not regularly. I'm doing well. Getting back to my roots with a bit of live reading. Alright, are we ready for story number 6? I mean, we've had an hour of HFY content. I don't know whether you guys can handle some more, but I did promise 10, and we're only on 7. 7, yes. Not 6. Can't count. Alrighty. Story number 7. The End of the War, written by Chucky Snow. Grand General Takurs stood on his bridge, ignoring the chaos around him. Dozens of klaxons sounded, hundreds of lights and indicators were flashing red. The smell of smoke and death hung in the air. His bridge complement was a mere 3 young ensigns. They tried to quell the noise from the stations, normally staffed by a crew of 20 hardened officers. Those brave souls had either died in their seats or died fiddling others. The ship was intact, but certainly its days of powered flight were past. It hung in a decaying orbit around a lifeless rock, where his species had attempted their last stand against his enemy, the Terrans. As they did in previous 30 battles, the Terrans had won. In point of fact, the only battle Takurs and the Chlorians had won was the first. Takurs would only say in private that without the advantage of surprise, that too might have been lost. He held a gun in his hand, but both the gun and his arm that held it were barely operational. Pride demanded that he at least try and take out one person before finally falling himself. The door to the bridge had been reinforced, but the breach was inevitable. As the final brace was cut and the doors began to open, he alone tried to raise his weapon. The ensigns were still too busy delaying the failure of the engines to bother with the imminent guests. As he got sight of something green beyond the door, everything turned white, then black. As he faded from consciousness, he realized they had tossed in a stun grenade. "Cowards!" he thought. He woke to find himself tied to his command chair. There were now several humans on the bridge, and they seemed to be working with the ensigns to shut down the engines. Certainly, they had stopped most of the alarms. The groaning of the superstructure could be heard as the ship flexed from its damage. One human, no bigger nor more important than the others, was staring at the Kurz. "Are you the General?" the Terran asked, looking at a hollow of the General from better times. "Possibly," he replied, unwilling to be more cooperative. "I am authorized to either kill you or take you prisoner. Your choice," the human said. There was an impressive lack of emotion in his voice. "Death," the Kurz said without hesitation. "I expected nothing less, but we wanted to give you the opportunity." The General noticed the small box on the stand near the human and surmised correctly that it was a camera. No doubt it had higher quality than whatever rig the soldier had on his armor. "Is that how you show my people before you kill them all? Looking forward to wiping out my race, did you hope to show me begging for my life? Like some human," he sneered. "We do have a fleet heading to your homeworld as we speak. That fleet is packed with hull plates, and it's not going to meet a single one of your ships, since we've destroyed them all. And when we get there, we're going to wipe something from existence. This war, it ends with you. So you destroy my people with bombs? Do you destroy them with a contagion?" "Actually," replied the human, "with food." "Ah, my people would starve first. They would never eat your poison trash." "They are, and they will, because it won't be poisoned. You've left your people in a very bad state, and we're going there to help." The General leaned back and laughed loudly. "Ha! I know your type. All your type knows how to do is kill and destroy. Actually, I would say that about you, dear General. But yes, I am very happy to kill and destroy anyone and anything that threatens me. Up until now, that has been you, your army, your fleet. I do hope you remember that you fired the first shot. You took the first life in our conflict. Tell me, do you remember why we started this war? You dared encroach on the Carolean Empire. Your vaunted empire is, or should I say was, 3 planets and 2 systems. We were just one, and the act of placing a settlement 10 light years from yours was somehow an act of war. Was there some vote by the general population to attack our outpost? Did the people choose to attack Earth?" The human asked calmly. "I speak for my people. They need not tell me their thoughts. I decided that we would attack. They gladly followed." The soldier smiled for the first time. "We both fought and we both lost so much. We've known for quite some time that we've lost enough. We pushed you back, and then we stopped. We gave you a chance after chance to end all of this, but you always refused. Towards the end, with the last few punishing defeats that we gave you, we realized that it wasn't your people that we were at war with, but you." The human looked at the ensigns. "Those aren't my enemies. Those are just some pups you threw uniforms on. The ones that stood with you, the ones that thought like you, are all gone. Really, this war isn't over when I let you commit suicide. This war is over when we rescue your own people that have lived and suffered under you for so long. This war isn't over until we take your people and make them our friends. I want you to understand this. Something to think about as the ship burns up in the atmosphere, as fire and flame lick at the windows around you, before they shatter and you burst into flames yourself. We are going to go to your world. We are going to help your own people rebuild. And yes, we're going to show them this video and see what your anger got you in the end. We're going to make their lives better. We've been very efficient at destroying your world, but humans are even better at building. We're going to rebuild your cities, your factories, your schools. We're going to feed and clothe and house your people. We're going to shut down your war machine and make them self-sufficient again. We're going to form a trading partnership and are fair and mutually beneficial. We'll help with agriculture and medicine, two of our specialties. We're going to introduce them to our other species we are friends with and show them what a healthy society looks like. We'll help them venture out into other systems. We're going to help them get past this ugly little point in their history. And by the next generation, your people will be embarrassed and ashamed that you ever spoke for them. I'd never try to remove you from history, for you deserve the place that you have earned. You'll have statues, but they'll be of a warning, not honor. The soldier stood up. Let's go, men. The fate of the ship is sealed. Everyone, Terran and Crolian alike, quietly left their posts and exited the bridge. He looked down at the seated general. He was so angry he seemed unable to speak. It's not too late. You can still come with us. I would rather die than surrender to you, scum. The human picked up the camera. I understand. We too have a tradition that the captain goes down with the ship. May you soon reunite with the many souls that you sent to the next plane. May they have mercy on your soul. And he left, atmospheric friction already beginning to heat the room. The last warship of the once great Crolian fleet slowly fell into the atmosphere. A red trail grew from the ship before the engines ruptured, and the craft burst into 1,000 growing pieces. Aboard the many human ships overhead, the thousands of beaten alien prisoners were able to watch the last fight. Few mourned its passing. End of story. So everyone is from all over. I'm glad I actually picked a time where we could get such a wide variety of people. Unfortunately, with the world being round in time zones and stuff, it's difficult to pick a time where you get as much people as you can. I mean, the 7 o'clock in the morning one for me, the game streams, I know are quite late for the American portion of the audience, and this one falls into afternoon. It's about finding the golden time to do this, but I think this time isn't too bad, and most people are used to this time. Okay, story number 8. Station Gamma, written by Lostfall. Milan had managed to pay Station Gamma for about 10 cycles. That was before she first heard about contact with humans, and Space Station was a Federation trading and diplomatic post. No one race controlled it, though her race, the Arail, were often found in charge of diplomatic posts. Most races found them appealing and easy to talk to. She looked at the notification in front of her. the first meeting between the humans and the Federation were to occur on Gamma Station. She also had all the records of said meeting and follow-on communications. She shook her head as she thought about it. She was still trying to make sense of it as she started to type her report. The most esteemed Federation representatives, it is with the utmost shame that I must report initial diplomatic meetings with the humans did not seem to go well. The first issue had come about almost as soon as the human party had entered the station. The Hospitality and Adaptive Learning Module Model 2000 greeted the humans. The unit usually called itself HAL 2000 and self-identified as such. The unit had been designed to be the least offensive thing imaginable. It was little more than a red circle with a white dot that moved to where it was focusing to help racers interact with it. Milan had never even considered, when making the plans, that this, beyond ensuring it knew to introduce itself and ask if it could help them. When it spoke a language, it did so in a neutral voice, as could be synthesized. She still remembers her shock when HAL 2000 contacted her. It had suggested it might have been a mistake to have to greet the human party. It had reported upon introducing itself as HAL 2000 and asking if it could help them. One of the humans, a David Bowman, had taken one look and it stopped. He then turned to the rest of his party and said, "Nope, seen this movie, and I'll be waiting on the ship if you need me." While the rest of the humans made noises that seemed to be amusement, none present felt the need to explain why it caused such discomfort for Dave at the time. The humans did not react well to the HAL 2000 unit on the station. Well, we do not understand why one human refused to enter the station. He claimed he had seen this movie. The other humans did not feel the need to elaborate. What happened next was even more puzzling. The humans were following the guiding arrows to the designated meeting room. When they saw a utility bot working down a corridor, it derailed the entire group. Suddenly, they all took off down the corridor and proceeded to take photos next to the robot. The robot was a D-84 module, but they insisted on calling it R2. The humans also have an unhealthy obsession with the utility robots. It appears that they believe all the utility robots are R2 models. They will make beeping noises at it and assail it for photos. That had seemed tame compared to what happened next. The Federation had sent a xenomorph, Chartal of the Zor, and representing them. They were also to offer a customary first contact technology gift. When the xenomorph entered the room, it immediately caused commotion with the humans. It appears humans have fiction centered around a similar appearing alien. The xenomorph are an exoskeletal black sentient with a tail and a large head. They felt the xenomorph bore a strong resemblance to a fictional creature. Many Xenos find the herbivore's appearance disturbing. This is primarily due to the energy-absorbing shell that they have adapted for the cool planets. The humans immediately called it an alien. Being, as we're all alien to each other, they treated it as a title. It had been terribly confusing. While none left, the human Ripley spent the whole meeting staring at it, the whole time muttering, "No way." The humans had a negative initial response to the xenomorph representative. This appears to be because of something from their fiction. There was an extensive set of questions about facehuggers and if xenomorph had queens or eggs. The Chartel had been selected as their race lacks a definitive shape. They were from a high-gravity planet, similar to Earth, but they evolved to lack any structure, allowing them to change shapes as needed. They lacked many other living creatures on the world that they lived on. They generally chose to look like a lump. When the Chartel representative entered the room, one human yelled, "Holy shit, they got a blob too!" None of the humans would get too close to the representative. The Chartel representative behaved in the most controlled manner, especially given the humans' insistence on calling it the blob. The humans at this point were confusing, to say the least. They seemed both shocked and amused. Things got worse when the Zor joined the room. Milan still remembered with a shudder the human reaction. Holy crap, Greys are real! What followed next was perhaps the most disturbing series of questions. The humans accused the Zor of having visited prior. They wanted to know about human probes, cattle mutilation, the defacement of property. The Zor knew nothing of any of these accusations. The humans also appear convinced that they have had past contact with the Zor. The Zor representative has checked his databases and can find no such records. While criminal elements are possible, it is unlikely the Zor have been there. As diplomacy began, the humans seemed to not take it seriously. They kept asking about the hidden camera. How did they know? I'd been watching the entire interaction, so I could prepare this report. The Zor pointed it out, to which the humans insisted someone would pay for this. To our shock, unprompted, one of them asked, "What next? Skynet?" We have no way of knowing how he predicted our gift. We asked how he knew, and he just said, "Yeah, it seemed to fit." The humans were initially dubious of our intergalactic network, Skynet. They accepted and seemed to be in great humor. They did insist on keeping it separate from their network until comfortable. This too appeared to be a fiction, they claimed. Milan was still not sure what to make of this encounter with these strange beings. Most new species come in wide-eyed and awed. These humans had treated the entire meeting like it was a prank being pulled on them. They showed almost no fear and held back no questions. Given the post-meeting response, I recommend we run full set of tests on human mental capabilities. Their representatives explained some of their actions. They have provided footage of pre-contact video they claim was fiction. Many of these indeed date to long before our contact. The provided references are quite frankly disturbing. They seem to already be aware of galactic races in what they claim are fictional settings, though their interpretation of each race seems to lack context and accuracy. Humans self-program themselves to fear other races. Milan couldn't help but remember the human reaction to her. They called her an Asari. It was a fictional race from a human video game. What little description they gave she found to be terrible. The thought of their pink skin gave her an unpleasant shivers. She flashed a communication they got from the humans after negotiation. The humans had insisted on giving back a gift of their own. They have apparently made a cyborg using former law enforcement officers. They learned how to do this from Skynet. We have unveiled the human addition to our police corps. Unfortunately, there was an incident during the unveiling. It was scanning the crowd and spotted a wanted fugitive, which it promptly shot. Then loudly proclaimed, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." The humans have promised that they are fixing the logic order. Future shootings will only happen after the announcement. While disturbing, it has caused a significant drop in crime on the station. She had to chuckle looking back on it. She had thought the human introduction a disaster until that last communication. She had spent hours staring at it before trying to finish the report. The humans have sent us a thank you for such an entertaining meeting. They claim to be flattered by all the research we did on their pop culture. They look forward to future meetings, provided we don't ask them to wear red shirts. We don't know what the issue they have with red shirts, but they were insistent. Station Master, Milan. End of story. Why are you being bashful, co-host? Just musicking. Music. There we go. A little bit of music. So there was a nice pop culture laden episode. Mostly from the late 70s and early 80s. It's one of those stories where you try and figure out what the next reference is going to be. Alright, we're 8 out of 10, and we're an hour and a half in, so I think we're on schedule. The last two stories are about 10-ish minutes. Just trying to give my voice a little bit of a break in between the stories. Narrating non-stop for 2 hours without a break can be a bit rough on the voice. Yep, they're not scary at all. Apparently. This could just be propaganda. I mean, we never know. Until we know, I suppose. Well, it wouldn't be a problem because my name's not Dave. So I should be fine. Okie dokie. Story number next. Story number 9. After Action Report, written by Zephy Landantis. Music. What are you doing? Softer. There we go. Just barely audible, a whisper in the background. Like a silent fart. Okay. Following the scheduled arrival in the Imperium 442 system, Exo Dallas ordered a preliminary exploration path, taking us past the 4 planets in the system, in order to do initial medium scan range and analysis. The PEP took us uneventfully past 3 solid objects, of which one was at a distance the star permitting it to have a liquid water. It wasn't until we were en route to the gas giant that Captain Duresh ordered a course change, disrupting the planned flyby by setting a course that would result in the tricard colliding with the core of the planet. As the sensors indicated a gas giant's gravity well beginning to have an effect on the ship's trajectory, the sensors suite operator detected a construct initially deemed to be a ship of non-human origin, positioned in a location that would have put the tricard in a compromised position, had the captain not ordered a course adjustment. The ship turned around and discharged a high-energy weapon, searing the tricard's in-atmospheric dorsal fin. The captain ordered a close proximity flyby by the gas planet's surface. This resulted in enough turmoil on the surface on the planet to create a smokescreen covering the evasive course of the tricard and allowing for a high-effect slingshot maneuver to accelerate the ship on an escape trajectory, conversing enough to extend an extrapolation range by a factor of 0.32. The Admiral leaned back in his chair and the clerk finished reading the report out loud. Is this your report, Lieutenant Hanson? It is, Admiral. He rolled a bit forward on his torso and rested his elbows on the half-circle-shaped table in front of him. The remaining 6 high-ranking officers, flanking him with 3 on each side, said nothing. You are aware of Captain Darris's, he cleared his throat softly, unique situation. I nodded. Yes, I'm aware of the captain's exotic behavior. One of the officers at the end of the table choked a giggle. The rest held their faces in a parade fixation. The Admiral sighed. We all are, you Lieutenant, which is why we've called you into this hearing. I cocked my head, indicating a professional confusal. The Admiral continued. Knowing what we do about Captain Darish, and having seen plenty of AARs from this crew, reading an AIAR that actually sounds like a routine exploration, despite encountering an alien vessel, he paused, choosing his words carefully. This is the odd one out. Admiral, my report follows every protocol regarding AAR submission, and we know this and recognize that this is as the highest-ranking bridge crew. Apart from the commanders, your AAR is the one submitted. You've done nothing wrong, Lieutenant. He leaned back in his seat, his brows crunched up in worried figures on his forehead. A colonel and the Admiral's right leaned into a microphone. We would like to hear what actually happened, Lieutenant, and more importantly, why you would cover it up. I see. I reached out and grabbed a glass of water. Taking a sip, I gathered my thoughts. Let me start with some background. I began. The colonel snorted and started reading out from my records. I looked at the Admiral, who silenced the colonel with a hand gesture. Go ahead, he said as he nodded at me. Are you familiar with the Planese 4 system? I didn't wait for a reply. Don't worry, very few are. It is essentially an asteroid field the size of the Sol system, orbiting a dying red dwarf star. The few ships that make it there without being freighters have one thing in common, and one thing only. I've got nowhere else to go, and no funds to go any further. I was born in that system. For those of you who are of Terran birth, it is a space equivalent of a trailer park, and by comparison, I am the son of trailer park trash. My parents were asteroid miners and made their daily lives bearable by inhaling FTL fuel fumes through their EVA life support. That left me a 10-year-old boy with 2 options, rock skimming or FTL snorting. I chose skimming. Half the officers looked like I had declared war on their sense of justice. Rock skimming is basically the asteroid field equivalent of a drag race. In Sol, you have an annual tournament that runs from planetary orbital to adjacent planetary orbit. We raced from microplanet to microplanet, surface to surface, through the asteroid belt. And yes, it is very illegal. It gave me a purpose. I had an old, dying skimmer, and I couldn't get spare parts or find repair shops anywhere. So I learned to read, write, repair, and fly. I was good at it, so good that I could join the Terran Fleet Academy on merit of having 6 years of experience on my piloting credentials by the age of 19. Good cheers, Tim. Have a good one. No, don't get me wrong. Flying a starship from System A to System B, then plotting a course, is all good and fun, but, I took another sip of my water. The 7 people sitting in a half circle, all facing me, all looked like I was about to drop a bomb in their laps. It doesn't hold the challenge of interpreting Captain Darris's orders, or, executing them. I guess the reason for me to be very precise on protocol when it comes to the AAR is this. Darrish is a skilled captain and a good man, for no other reason than that he deserves my loyalty. And if you want more, he challenges me. The Admiral gave me a soft smile. That is 2 very good reasons, Lieutenant. Now, what really happened? We arrived in the system without the captain on the bridge. He'd been busy with the afternoon snack during FTL transit and had spilled his contents of his sippy cup and his son. Let me say that again. He'd been busy with his afternoon snack during the FTL transit and had spilled the contents of his sippy cup on his Santa suit. XO Dallas had suggested to him that he go change into something that wouldn't stain from the prune juice if there was a repeat spillage, and the captain had agreed to and moonwalked off the bridge so as to not stain the floor behind him while sucking on the tassel of his hat. XO Dallas ordered a routine flyby so we could gather data to the science pack, and I plotted the course. After we'd passed the second planet, Captain Darish returned to the bridge and declared a siesta from the doorway. I turned and watched as he tried to maneuver an oversized sombrero through the opening, while keeping it on his head. In feigning to do so, the captain ordered the sombrero confined to the brig and had 2 security staff escort the hat to confinement, complete with standing order to interrogate it and file a tribunal for later. Failure to properly negotiate spatially proportionate access ways with regards to rank and procedure. The colonel lowered her head in defeated realization of what the folder on her desk labeled Sergeant Hattie McSombrero Disciplinary Case contained. The captain then took a seat in his loving embrace and engaged in what I can only describe as aggressive courting with the chair as we approached the third planet. The chair had refused his repeated attempts at a second base long enough for him to abandon the plan of action. He grabbed a banana and made eye contact with me. I don't care how many battles you've seen or what war zones you've witnessed. You've never seen pure evil until you've held eye contact with a man eating a banana without removing the peel first. He even ate the little sticker. Hanson, he said as we passed the third planet, still keeping eye contact. Adjust course by 3 degrees port, 2.5 down. I looked around at the faces on the other side of the table and shrugged. After 7 tours with Darius, you stop asking questions. I adjusted the course and every collision alarm on the bridge went off. 30 seconds later, the sensor operator spotted the alien vessel and, you described it as non-human, the General of Tactical Command said, interrupting me. I did, sir. Flying saucer seemed a bit unprofessional for an after-action report. Agreed. Continue. Thank you. Darish threw himself on the decking as the alien weapon discharged, and the damage report on my screen noted that the in-atmospheric flight was discouraged. That was when the captain jumped onto his console and yelled, "Surf's up, my dude! Cowabunga!" So I turned to the tricard collision course and switched the gravimetric engines, skimming the surface of the gas planet like a surfboard, weaving left and right, following the instructions of the captain. The maneuver whirled enough gas up behind us to create a gas smoke screen for us to hide behind, hopefully making whatever targeting system they had on their ship useless. They did, however, follow us into the cloud, and when they fired their energy weapon again, they ignited the cloud surrounding them. I caught the gravity well velocity of the planet and used it to slingshot us into the exit path for the system. The rest occurred as the report says. The Admiral looked at me, his eyes trying to convey something that I couldn't understand. The tricard needs to have half the armor plating replaced. Are you sure? Just skimmed the surface of the gas giant. I shrugged. Must have been a corrosive gas, sir. He nodded slowly and dismissed me. When I got back to the tricard, I told Captain Darish what had happened at the hearing. His reply was this: "There's a sticker on bananas." End of story. Well-timed co-host, well timed. Bit of a somber tune, but the playlist is king at this point. Yes, it's very strange to eat a banana with the peel on, but it works to freak people out. Alrighty. Story number last. A bit of a bait and switch. Okay. Co-host, just chill, calm, relax, take deep breaths. Alrighty. Story number 10. Reluctant Warriors. Written by For Use at Works. Executive Summary. The Human Studies Project continues to be a resounding success. We have learned more about the species in the past 2 years than the previous 3 decades of observation. The use of recreational information gathering has provided amazing insights into the psyche of humanity across cultures. As an added benefit, it seems to be nudging their overall society past social development rate of 3. When stage 4 is achieved, we can finally make official first contact with the fascinating species. Project History Summary. We have been observing humanity for almost a century now. Their technological has developed at an astounding rate, causing many near-miss instances where observation craft and xenobiologists and xenosociologists teams were glimpsed by subjects. As early as the near-catastrophic war they referred to as World War II. Rapid development of aircraft and detection equipment operating within the 5 MHz to 5 GHz range caught us off guard on many occasions. As their audio-visual recording capabilities developed to the point that almost every adult human living in a developed region carries a personal device equipped with a camera, has forced us to dramatically reduce the number and catch and release physiological studies and observation sorties, and forced our engineers to upgrade our stealth capabilities. Detection of our studies resulted in myths of UFOs and alien abductions in human culture. We are still not sure of the origin of the anal probe myth, though. Their next unexpected technological achievement, however, proved to be a boon beyond all hopes. They developed an information network that links massive amounts of data stores and carries equally massive amounts of disposable communications information. We now have 3 full-time data network AIs dedicated to recording and analyzing information from the system. We didn't expect them to develop such a system for at least 180 years after they created the first integrated system. With this new technology came the rise of recreational systems. They started as primitive moving pixels controlled by users to stimulate battles, games of skill, puzzles, and games of chance. Their lasted innovation they refer to using various acronyms such as VMMPORGs, Virtual Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Games. VMMOPOPS's virtual massive multiplayer online first-person shooters, and VSPRIE's virtual single-player recreational immersive experiences. These systems allow humans to inhabit, experience, and interact with artificial realities. They use these realities to do everything from socialize with distant relatives and friends, study to learn new information and skills, and with the latter system, VSPREI, explore and indulge in seemingly endless variations of their reproductive acts. However, it is the first two systems that have yielded interesting new results. Humans, as a species, are generalists. An individual may genetically and mentally be more capable at some activities than others, but almost all of them can adequately perform a wide variety of tasks, ranging from nurturing their young to detailed construction and crafting to artistry and all forms of brutal acts of violence. It is the final aspect that we are currently learning more about. There appears to be a subset of humans oriented for navigating conflict in both extreme and long-term stresses. They seem to thrive in high-stress, high-information situations. Where presented with threatening situations, humans normally respond in one of three reactions, namely flight, freeze, or fight. These are not uncommon amongst known species and sentients. The fight response in most known sentients is a significant portion of the humans consists in a near-blind lashing out in physical violence as a means to ward off or eliminate the source of threat. However, in a subset of this group, their brains have a different reaction. They grow temporarily colder, more calculating, and the sense of empathy seems to wither. They enter what they humans call a flow state. The flow state is not limited to combat acts and is seen across the variety of tasks that humans perform. In the state, a human literature claims that they feel that they sense and understand their environment perfectly, and their bodies move with little thought when responding to changes in that environment. In short bursts, a human in a flow state can rival some of our most accomplished tactical AIs. In general, their brains seem to stay in a elevated awareness and do not appear to have information filters as other humans. When in non-excited states, most humans' brains tend to filter out information and allow conscious mind to relax and rest. These humans' brains have diminished capacity to do so. As such, they have traditionally been medicated and are either made to, or on their own, seek out various other therapies to moderate their mental states. We have called this group of humans reluctant warriors. Initial observations indicate that as a group they do not seek out violence or confrontation, but they often willfully participate in activities that hone their minds and bodies to fight. They gravitate towards things like martial arts, military service, extreme sports, VMMPORGs and VMMPOFPSs, emergency medical services, emergency rescue and property protection services, and other occupations and hobbies that many humans consider high risk and or high stress. For many, these high stress situations are the only time that they truly feel in their element. I want to reiterate, these high-stress situations are the only time that they truly feel. These humans are not violent by nature and seldom seek out confrontations. They seem most responsive to situations, the survival of those that they have pack-bonded with, or they themselves are under threat. While they can perform brutal acts of violence in these situations, they often experience deep regret afterwards and may seek relief from both legal and illegal therapeutic substances. This has led to the ruin of some of the noblest amongst their numbers. We are flagging this group of humans for additional study. Once first contact has been made, and if the species decides to join the greater society of sentients, they may be a great boon to our protective and emergency services. We propose support and care to manage post-incident mental trauma. These reluctant warriors have the potential to become the key to humanity's successful introduction to the greater universe. Introducing a new species as emergency responders and protectors may well lead to the smoothest integrations in our history. End of story. And that is the 10 stories for this evening. That's not too loud. So, like I said before, this is going to be a thing for the next coming week or weeks. We'll see how it goes. I think the response tonight has been pretty good. But as more and more people realize that this is happening, I'm sure we'll have more people join us next week. The VOD for this will be available after the stream. But because of the way YouTube handles VODs, I will be releasing these stories separately during the week. So it's additional content for those that couldn't make it to the stream, and additional content for those that could, I suppose. Thank you all for watching and coming past and having a chat with me and having a listen. It is very much appreciated. I think that's going to be it. That's almost 2 hours on the dot. Well, an hour and 55 minutes. Hey, Red Jackal, how you doing? Trying something new on this end. Something other than game streaming. We'll see if this takes off or not. All good, Red. All good. It'll be available after the stream. Jake, are you talking about fantasy one-shots? If so, it's difficult to find them, but I'll try to find some more. It's a pleasure, Sci-Fi. Glad you enjoyed, Harold. Alright, I'll see those of you that I normally see tomorrow in the gaming stream. But I will be back here next week doing another live reading, so I hope to see you all then. And until then, I hope you all have a fantastic time. And I hope you all stay safe and warm. And I hope you have a good one. Cheers.